Good morning, everybody. You are currently listening to a Tall Girls podcast hosted by a tall girl named India. I hope that everyone listening today is feeling super good, feeling super fantabulous, because today is a special day with a capital S. I am joined today by pro thrifter and fellow tall girl fashionista, the one, the only, Corinna. Hi,
Hel-
Corinna.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you for being here. Fun fact, I did kind of butcher her name on one of my episodes over Podmas. And I remember she DM'd me, it's like, hi, thank you for the shout out on the episode. By the way, my name is not pronounced.
It's totally fine. It happens all the time.
And I felt so bad. I was so happy with that episode. I was like, yes, we're gonna do well with this episode.
No, it was amazing, and I had no idea, so I was so honored when I listened to it. It was like, oh my goodness, it was exciting. So no, please don't. It happens all the time. It's really not.
It's okay. We got it right this time. So I'm feeling good about that. But how are you doing today? How are you doing? How's life?
I'm good. We got dumped with a ton of snow here. I'm up in Canada, and we had a huge snowstorm last night. We got about 10, 12 inches, which is quite a bit for this area. We're prepared for dealing with it. It's just no big deal here. So,
I actually got snow what day is today? Today's Saturday. We're recording this. I got snow on Tuesday, and I was ecstatic because whenever I get cold weather, I'm always like, it's not as good if it doesn't have snow. So when we got snow on Tuesday, I was so excited. You're saying 12 inches. Ours was probably barely an inch. But you know what? I was honestly super, super happy with the snow we got. But you know what? That's what happens when you live in the northern part of North America. But anyways,
exactly.
We absolutely love to hear that you got snow because we're actually finishing out winter. We're going to be going to spring soon, which is insane. But anyways, let's turn right from weather. Please introduce yourself formally to the audience.
Of course. So I'm Corinna. I am a huge secondhand shopper. I'm a tall girl. I'm 5'9.5", so I'm a short tall, which I think is just the most hilarious phrase. I made my Instagram handle at Corinna is kinda tall because that's just it. Like when you're short tall, you're kinda tall. Like you're taller than average, but in the tall world, you're kind of short.
Yeah.
So I'm in my 40s, so I have been dealing with trying to find tall clothes for 25 plus years, and
Ooh.
I'm so grateful it's better. And on top of that, I have a tall child, so I'm not just trying to find clothes for me, it's for him as well too.
We love that. We love getting hit with the double whammy. But honestly, when you said 5'9.5", girl, you don't understand. It feels so good to hear that because the two other guests that I had, they always started their height with 6, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just about there, but not quite. So hearing 5'9.5", you're part of the I can't say 5 foot, but the tall 5 foot party.
Yeah.
Tall 5 foot squad. Because technically, it is tall, but I like your Instagram handle, kind of tall. It kind of fits. So
yeah,
we love hearing that.
It's because it's such an interesting world. Because you're right, anyone over 6 feet, they consistently get wow, you're tall. But we get that in the tall 5'10" crowd, the taller 5 crowd. We get that from some people, but then from the 6 foot crowd, we get you're not that tall.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's such an
interesting place to be. You're tall, but
not that tall,
Yeah.
But you know what? Whatever. It is what it is. But anyways, thank you so much for being here again, and thank you so much for being 5'9.5", or thanks to your parents. So weird.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to credit my 6'3.5" father for that, and not my 5'2.5" mother.
Oh my gosh, the 1 foot difference. Oh.
Yeah, they're not together anymore. They haven't been for a long time, but they definitely were quite the height difference. So I ended up smack dab in the middle. even more funny, my mother-in-law is 4'10", so I am almost
What?
exactly a foot taller than her.
Oh my gosh. That is insane. 1 foot?
Yeah. So both my mother-in-law and my mother have both said at one point, like, can you take your shoes off? Because you're
Stop.
just too tall. And both responses, both times, it was, I'm actually not wearing any shoes because I was indoors.
Oh my god. That is
It's
so funny.
it's such an interesting thing, like being 5'9.5", because I'm always either I feel like I'm always having to apologize for being
Yeah.
too tall
For
or
being
for being
tall.
too short. Like
Yeah,
it's
that's what
such an
happens when you're
interesting
caught in the
place.
middle. It really,
Yeah.
really is. But speaking of,
Yeah.
that's one of your experiences with like being tall and stuff like that. I want to hear about your experience growing up as a tall girl.
Mm.
Like, were people making fun of you? Were you considered too tall, too short? In this case, you know what I mean? Fill us
Yeah,
in.
it was kind of all over the place. So as a kid, I was like my son is. I was tall, but I was just kind of tall. So I was always just a
Mhm.
couple inches taller than the other kids, even though I was one of the younger kids in the school. And then everybody got their growth spurt ahead of me. So kind of like grade 7, grade 8, I was actually the short kid for once, which was
Oh,
so interesting. Like everyone was in adult clothes before I was. And then all of a sudden I got to high school. I started at 5 feet tall. Met my best friend who's already her full height. Like she's taller than I am. And so people used to call us like the giant and the squirt.
what?
And then now I'm an inch shorter than her. So I just grew something like 7.5 inches in the first 2 years of high school. And by the time I had
Seven
finished
and a
my first
half.
year of university, I was at my full height of 5'9.5". So definitely high school. Yeah, it was brutal. Like there was nowhere in the 90s to buy long pants. Like I remember going to like even like a really big shopping mall looking for pants and finally finding after going through the entire mall one pair of jeans at a 34 inseam. And like it just was brutal. Everything was so expensive. There was very
Yeah.
little there. And then we had a company um, called Tall Girl, which I
Ooh.
occasionally find their things in the thrift store because they've been gone for a long time. But
Uh,
they were really catered to kind of that 6 foot and up crowd. So when I would walk into tall stores like that, they didn't have anything for me, and they're just kind of like, "Why are you here?" So it was brutal. Yeah, I the whole thing that always still bothers me, and I haven't heard it since the 90s, thank goodness, because once the 2000s hit, I started finding more long length pants. But where's the flood? Oh my goodness. Like I still cannot wear crop pants. If I wear crop pants, I just feel like someone's going to pop out like in high school and say, "Where's the flood, Corinna?" Like, I don't know. Is that a 90s thing? Have you heard this?
I've
Like it was
never heard
awful.
that.
Okay, it was definitely a 90s thing because there just weren't tall clothes.
Where's the flood?
Where's the
Oh,
flood?
is it because like part of your legs is out and
Yeah,
like you oh my they did that to you in
they
school?
did that all the time because I couldn't find pants that were long enough. So my pants were always too short because you know how it is. You're trying to squeeze into the regular length pants and they're just too short. I was trying to look for ones that you could let the hem down on, but even when you could, it wasn't a lot. So like all my pants were too short. All of them. So I would constantly hear in high school in the 90s, "Where's the flood?" It was awful. Like I
That
still
like
don't like crop pants.
I've never heard of Where's the Flood, but I do feel you on the crop pants thing. I used to, but it was never the jeans. It was more so like kind of sweatpants, like
Mm-hmm.
capri sweatpants, fleece pants types of things. And it's just so weird because it just looks like a pair of sweatpants shrank
Yeah.
in the wash. And I just had
Mm-hmm.
nothing else to wear. So I just put it on when in reality, that's just the style. And fun fact, I was looking for sweatpants that my
Mm.
school sells because you know how universities usually sell like merchandise, like sweatshirts, yada yada yada. I'm looking for sweatpants, and all it is like the cropped sweatpants.
Ugh.
And I'm just sitting here. I'm sorry. Honestly, that is so embarrassing.
No.
The fact that I even said that out loud, like, it makes me question why I went to this school. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I love my school.
I graduated from my school 20 years ago and I still have my sweatshirt, but yeah, the sleeves are too short. I refuse to get rid of it because I put a lot of
Memories.
effort in. Yeah, I put a lot
Yeah.
of effort to get that degree, but yeah, the sweatshirt really doesn't fit, but I won't get rid of it.
Yeah. Honestly, as long as it's there, like, as a memory, it is what it
Yeah.
is. But, you were talking before about how you were a thrifter, how you go thrifting and stuff like that.
Yes.
And I'm genuinely curious, how did you get into thrifting and secondhand shopping?
It's something I've pretty much always done. I grew up going to secondhand stores mostly just because we didn't have a lot of money, but also because my parents aren't from Canada. So when they moved here, they ended up buying a lot of things secondhand. So when you have to fill like a whole apartment, then a whole house, and get things, especially for things for kids. Like there's no point in buying new for everything. So it was just
Hmm.
always something in my life that we had hand-me-downs from people, or we had items that we picked up at the thrift store. And I realized pretty quickly that when you don't have a lot of money, thrifting was such a great way to get something that was better quality and nicer than you could afford if you were to go buy it new.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
yeah.
And I don't know, when we first spoke, I don't even know if I told you about this earlier, but I don't even want to say way back when because I'm young, but when I was younger, thrifting was looked down upon. Like, if
Mhm.
you would tell your friends, like, yeah, like my mom or my dad got this bag from the thrift store, or I got my shoes from the thrift store, people will look at you like, ew, like, what are you on? Why are you thrifting? That's gross and stuff like that. But now it's almost like a trend. I
Yeah.
use trend very loosely, but it's almost like a trend. And it's just interesting living in those two periods and just seeing the difference. Like, wow, it really evolved into even a market now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I've noticed it really has been something that's been on the trend cycle. Because when I was first getting into my teens, grunge was huge, and a huge part of grunge, what part of that lifestyle, not just the music, was that you did a lot of secondhand clothes that you wanted to look unique. And you wanted to not necessarily have something that everybody else had. So I did a lot of thrifting just for fashion. I loved vintage when I was in high school, and thankfully had access to some really neat vintage shops in Toronto. But then, yeah, I definitely went through this whole period of like, oh, can't you afford real clothes?
Yeah.
Um, and it definitely seems to be something that's popular again, which I am just loving and I am here for, because this means that it's just easier access to get everything I wore in my youth when I was your
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
So I'm just wearing it again.
That's honestly so cool, though, at least that it's being accepted and people are not being attacked for thrifting. But was it hard, or even right now, like, is it still hard to thrift or secondhand shop as a tall girl?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think thrifting is, you have to go into a very different mentality, and it's very challenging for everybody because it's not your regular clothing store where you can go in and you know the sizing and you know what will work for you and what won't.
Mm-hmm.
So it can definitely be more challenging because for things like if you're looking for a pair of pants or like an overall or a shoe, there just aren't as many sizes, and it does get really hard to find tall sizes because we know how hard that is even online shopping for new.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what's really neat as well too, though, is that it also gets you being more creative with your fashion and trying on things that you normally wouldn't and finding other ways to wear it, which is really neat. And then sometimes you just kind of luck out. Like I went into my local thrift store one day and just was browsing in the other size boots because I was shooting a video for Instagram, and just happened to find a pair of boots in my size, in size 11, that were on the size 5 shelf, and they're amazing and they fit me perfectly. So it's definitely challenging, but it's there, and it just makes it such a great win when you do find that tall piece that
Mm-hmm.
fits you perfectly. Like it is just, yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Because me and my friends also do a little bit of their thing, whenever I'm able to see them, of course.
Mhm.
And it is a struggle, not even just as a tall girl, but in general, trying to find something that's actually your size, because like you said before, the diversity of sizing is just really isn't there. You know what I mean? I mean,
Mhm.
when you go to the regular stores, they have multiple pairs of this size, of like a medium or large, and yada yada yada. But in thrift stores, it's not necessarily like that, because they're just taking clothes from people that donate or maybe even sell it to them. So I definitely hear you on that part. That is tall. I mean, it's tall. It's hard. It's hard when you're not tall, and it's hard. I think it's harder when you're tall too, quite frankly. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'm not experienced, but I just understand that it is difficult. Um, but also, I remember throughout this episode so far that you kind of referred to thrifting and then secondhand shopping as two
Mhm.
separate terms. So is
Yeah.
there a difference between the two? And if so, like what's the difference?
There is. So, secondhand shopping is pretty much just a term that's used for any kind of secondhand shopping that you're doing. So, that can be whether you're going to a consignment store, you're shopping on some kind of online app like Depop or Poshmark, Mercari and Vinted or some other ones. It can include things like Facebook Marketplace. It can include like a garage sale, whereas thrifting generally is kind of just talking about like up here in Canada, it's called Value Village, but they're the same company as Savers, like things like Goodwill, where it's
Mm,
like it's actually like a store that's set up, whether it's a charity or not, where
mm.
people are donating clothes and you're buying, because that's where you tend to get the best details. And then even within that kind of thrifting, there's also some other different kinds of thrifting. Like you have like the Goodwill bins, and there's some like market by the pound stores where you can just get secondhand clothes for just a ridiculously good deal, like even more so than the thrift store. Although depending where you're going for the thrift store, they can get kind of pricey these days.
That is so true. I can attest to that
Yeah.
because I think it's Goodwill in specific. Everybody, well, at least in New York City, people
Yeah.
are crapping on Goodwill because their prices are so high.
Yeah.
I was in there once and there was a girl there with her mom, and there was it was just a plain black shirt. I don't think it was a t-shirt, it was just a regular shirt. And I will never forget, she screamed, $12. That is way too much. I'm like, oh my gosh. First of all, I heard that from all the way on the other side of the store. That's how passionate she was about the
Yeah.
subject. But I'm like, yeah, like Goodwill is definitely bumping up. I think it's because thrifting is starting to be a trend that they're trying to bump up their prices.
I think that's part of it. I think that's it because there's more people coming in. And there are a lot of people
Yeah.
like myself. Like I am a reseller. Like it's just something I do for fun on the side, but I do
Mm-hmm.
resell on Depop. But it's always amazing to me when I go into a place like Goodwill and I can see something that they're charging more for than
Mm-hmm.
I would sell it for
Yeah.
on my Depop or somebody else would. Because there's been times where I've wanted to get things and I've been like, what? You want $30 for a skirt? No, thank you. Like, you can buy a
Yeah.
new one for that. I mean, not that I want a new one. I do buy new clothes because there's just some things you just are just so hard to find tall.
Yeah.
So mostly a lot of pants and
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately shoes too, because I'm a size 11. So it's like there's really not a lot available in the stores,
Yeah.
period, let alone secondhand. I do buy it when I
Mm-hmm.
can, but uh, yeah, they're just charging so much, so many places.
It's insane.
It
Yeah,
really is.
but that actually leads to the next question. Now that
Mhm.
we're talking about that, do you have any tips or strategies for the tall girls out there who want to thrift?
Absolutely. So I think the first thing just to keep in mind, and this is just for thrifting in general, like if you're going to a thrift store, there, even for the smaller ones, like it is time consuming. So you're going to have the best luck when you can either go often and spend a lot of time or do one or the other. Because, to find that grail piece for you that is that tall item, sometimes you really do just have to put the time and the effort in. Like I recently found a dress that was a tall dress when I was in a thrift store a few weeks ago, and I wouldn't have found it if I hadn't been looking through every single dress. So unfortunately, sometimes like it can take a lot of time, but also when you find some of the funnest pieces. One of the other things I would definitely think of as well too is if you find something you like, um, remember you can always get it altered and taken in. And the hilarious
Mm,
thing is when you start getting things altered that you bought thrifted, you're usually spending a lot more to tailor it than you are
yeah,
on the item.
yeah.
Um, I also love places like Depop and Poshmark because you can go in and you can search. So, for example, like I'm a long distance runner, so I wear a lot of Lululemon because it's very tall friendly. So I buy most of that off Poshmark. So when I know there's a style that works for me, because I've bought it either new or I've tried it on the store before, I can go on Poshmark and search for that exact style to find it. I do wish they would add a filter on there for sizing that you could put in tall, because it gets a little frustrating sometimes when you know a brand does have like a 34, 36, or even longer inseam. But it does help. I mean, like when you know, like if say you're someone who likes Abercrombie, they have a lot of tall items. So, you can go on and look and put your sizes in so you can see if you can find those. Unfortunately, you're still going to have to filter through the regular sizes on some of those apps, but it is there. Also as well too, thinking about maybe something that you've liked in the past that that brand has sizes that work for you. So years ago, I used to love the jeans Rock Republic, and their standard inseam was 37. And so when I first started shopping on Poshmark, I looked for Rock Republic jeans because I knew that they were going to come actually too long for me because I'm only a 36. And I ended up finding a pair, and I had to be diligent. I had to make sure that they were a pair that was unhemmed, because a lot of people will hem those, that 32, 33, even 34, which is going to be too short for most of us who are listening to this. But there is stuff out there. And then also brands that only carry tall. Like if you go on Poshmark and look for Long Tall Sally, they only have tall sizes. So again, you want to make sure you're reading that description, making sure they haven't altered it so that it's not going to fit you, because we both know that tall does not mean the same. I always think it's so hilarious, being only 5'9.5", when I hear of a woman who's 6'2" who wears a 34 inseam. It's like, how am I 4 inches shorter than you? But,
exactly.
But my legs are 2 inches longer, just because we're all different. So so that definitely helps as well too. And then also as well too, it's, like I always hate if anyone tells me as a tall girl to go into the men's section, but but for thrifting I will. Well, because I have two problems with people telling me to go into the men's section. First, it's just lazy. So when you go to a store and they are a large manufacturer, they could have tall sizes, and they're telling you to the men's section, it's just lazy. Like, just have some sizes for me. Don't tell me you're inclusive because you have waistband sizes that are wider if you don't have petites and talls.
Exactly.
But I do love, and the other reason I think it's late, that I don't like it as well too, is because I'm taller than the average man. So, and men on average have shorter legs, so it's not really helping you when someone says,
I never knew that.
So if you look, so proportionately, men have longer torsos and shorter legs. So my legs at 5'9.5" are longer than my father, who's 6'3.5". I have longer legs than him. So it's a biology thing. So what it is it's related to puberty. So when you hit puberty, your back starts growing, like your spine doesn't grow anymore. Your legs can still grow a bit. But so because the guys hit puberty later, they have a longer amount of time for their spine to keep growing.
What?
Yep. So
they
it's
don't
pretty
teach
much
you this.
I don't remember when I heard that, but I was like, that makes so much sense.
That's insane.
Yeah. So look into it if you get a chance. I don't remember where I read it. It was something scientific, but there is actually reason. So, because I had noticed that a lot of men had shorter legs than me, and people were saying like, well, go try the men's pants, but they weren't long enough.
I'm still baffled. Like, my mind is actually blown. You know your stuff. You really do. Oh my gosh.
I just love useless tidbits of information. So as much as I hate being told to go shop in the men's section, and I generally won't, I do enjoy, like, if I just want a pajama top that's comfy, I go into the men's section, because then I can go get something that's like an Abercrombie or a Hollister that's a slim fit, that is a very nice fit on me as a female. Just crop off that bottom so it's actually hitting in a nice length and it's not tight on my hips, because I have some curve there. And I find that's just super comfy, and I get a nice long sleeve. And I've even bought, like when I wanted a polo one time, I just bought a men's shirt and then I just took it to the tailor and had them crop it. So it just looks like this little fun kind of funky 90s look, but really it was just a men's shirt, and it has the sleeve length that I need. So thrifting can just be really fun, just to find some unique things.
Yeah, honestly, those were some really good tips. I learned so much literally from that one segment. That was awesome. But I do want to get to our last question of this episode. What is one piece of advice that you would give a tall girl who is struggling to shop for herself, or even just struggling to find her style?
Yeah, it's, I really thought about this one. And I think the biggest thing for me, because I've gone through this whole cycle of just being really into trends in my 20s and then in my 30s, really just trying to embrace what I liked, is just really pay attention to what you feel good in and
Mm-hmm.
what you're not pulling at, what is comfortable, what's allowing you to not be distracted. Really really pay a lot of attention to why that makes you feel good and thinking about just why. Like, is it the color that makes you feel good? Is it the fabric because it's sitting really nicely on you? Is it the cut? And really just start looking for those things when you shop, because if you know that there's a color you like I love lavender. So
Ooh,
lavender's been a big trend in the past couple of years. So I've just been trying to find everything I can because there's only so much in the thrift stores because it's been like 20 plus years since it was a trend. So it's like, I
yeah.
just know that's a color that I'm going to feel good in. It's a color I'd love. So it's like, that's just a color I'm always drawn to. And just even looking at just like some of those words that kind of describe what you're feeling. So, like for my personal style, I tend to go with a lot of kind of like whimsy goth, and I like boho. And it's really just, I like just things that are flowy and things that make me feel like I'm just going to, like I'm at Woodstock, and I like things that are just a bit more dramatic and earthy. Whereas like I still like kind of like that witchy element with some of the blacks and such, but I'm not necessarily into like kind of a hard look. So just kind of thinking
Yeah.
about like how things make you feel, and then really just acknowledging like trends are stupid. Like these are
Honestly,
just
yes. I,
this,
I honestly couldn't agree more. They're annoying to keep
yeah.
up with.
This is just, trends are just capitalism telling us to spend our money. And
Yes.
the nice thing about going thrift shopping is you really are forced, because you're looking at all these things from all these different decades, all these different time periods, just to kind of go and see like what is suiting your style. And it really kind of helps you get away from the trends. And
Yeah.
also you realize as well too, the more you go to the thrift store, just how cyclical those trend cycles are. Because like I
Yeah.
said, everything I had 20 years ago I'm rebuying. So I think it
Hmm.
really just is paying attention to why you like something. Like
Yes.
I recently, or not recently, the past couple of years, I really wanted to get a skirt that I shouldn't have donated, that I had 20 years
Mm.
ago. And it was just a long denim skirt with a slit in the front. And I just realized, why did I like that? Why was I looking for this now? And I did find it.
Ooh, as you
Yeah,
should.
I found the exact same skirt. Now, granted, I did need a size up, so I did a good job
Mm,
getting rid of it when I did because it
yeah.
didn't fit. But, I just knew for me, like, I feel good in a long skirt. I don't want to be fussing about, can you see things you shouldn't be seeing? Do I need to shave my legs? I just don't want to think about those things. I feel
Yeah.
good in a long skirt. It's a really nice look on my tall silhouette. And so that tells me, like, even if you couldn't find that exact skirt that you wanted, just knowing, let's look for long skirts because that's what makes me feel good.
Yeah. Thank you so, so much for the advice, the tips, everything, all that. Please tell us where we can find you on the interweb, on social media, even your Depop. Just drop it all,
Oh,
please.
sure. Well, I mean, you can find me. The best place to find me is on Instagram. I'm at Corinna is kind of tall. I do have a link to my Depop there as well too. And really, just I'm an Instagram gal.
Yeah,
TikTok is very appealing, but I don't have time for it as a
I
busy
felt that.
working mom.
I felt that. But yeah, that's wait, so is your Depop on your Instagram too?
It is. I think my Depop is at Crimp Girl. I had just set it up just to put on items that I bought at the thrift store that just didn't end up being quite the right size. And also shopping on
Yeah.
Depop, sometimes you do end up getting things that you
Yeah.
think are going to fit. They just don't. And then it just turned into
Yeah.
just a really fun little side gig.
But I am going to be linking your stuff in the description so all of the listeners can check that out. And you can also check me out at a Tall Girls Podcast on Instagram, Pinterest, and TikTok. Hit me up. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Hit Corinna up. Let her know, what the vibe is with your thrifting. And if you have any other questions for her and stuff like that, I really do appreciate you, Corinna, coming on here and basically just schooling us on all the stuff that I did not know, because I learned so much from this episode that I did not expect to learn. So thank you so, so much yet again for that.
Oh my gosh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. I love your Instagram. So
Hey, we love
it's so nice to
it.
be here.
And I'm going to end this episode here. Thank you so much, listeners, yet again for tuning in. And I'll catch you in the next one. Good night and goodbye.